All right, today we've got something rather tricky to do, and we have to reset two diamonds. The customer found the diamonds, thank God, but we also need to size it down. So we have to reset two diamonds, size the ring down, but this one's tricky. Let me show you why. All right, so as you can see, the two diamonds are missing on the end. That's a pretty common spot for diamonds to come out. And like I said, the customer found them, and they mostly kind of want to pop back in there. Hang on, let me get this in at an angle. But they don't want to stay, so I don't quite know why they came out. I have to look at that. But because we're going to size this ring down, so look at it from the side here. So to size this down, what I have to do is take a piece out of it to make it smaller. Well, then when I bring those two together, then if you look at the top of this, as I squeeze this together, those prongs are going to get farther apart. So it's going to have a tendency to want to loosen some of these, but let me show you the real tricky part. You can see this is a pretty heavy band up through here. But if you look down here where all the diamonds are, as you can see, it's just barely any metal holding all of this together. So when I cut this and bend it, all of this is just going to almost want to collapse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it and remove a piece here. And I don't have to remove much, but instead of bending it through here, I'm only going to bend it right here. I've got some special pliers that will only basically take this piece of metal and bend it. And I do not want to affect this in any way because I don't want to loosen up any of these diamonds. So let's see how we do it. What I want to do is I want to look in here, and I'm going to heat this up. It's 14 karat white gold. And I want to see if there's any previous work, because if somebody's already sized it before, I want to know, well, assuming I can get my torch to work here, because if anybody's worked on it, I want to know it now, because that will tell me where I want to do my work. All right, I'm going to go with, because if there was previous work, you'd see a line or two on there, and I don't see it. Well, maybe, nope. I believe we are going to be the first one to cut into that. All right, so I went back through and I redid that little test because I thought I saw something, and sure enough, see those two lines right there and there? What had happened was somebody sized this ring up. They cut it, expanded the ring, put a piece in there. So why is that important to me? I'm going to show you. All right, so if you'll see, see the 8 right there. This ring is an 8.5. It needs to be a 7.5. So here's how we figure it out. All right, so see this guide along here? The difference between a 1 and a 2 and a 3 is the same as the difference between a 14 and a 15. So it's the same scale over and over, but we're going to go from a 7 to an 8, or excuse me, 7.5 to an 8.5, which is exactly one size. So I'm going to open my dividers to that distance. All right, so why I wanted to know where this previous work was is what if I scribed it right here and I took out a piece between the two, then we would have a solder joint, a solder joint, and a solder joint. And I don't want 3 solder joints, I only want 2. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is come in here and get me a line scribe through the existing solder joint. And while it's sitting there, I'm now going to take my dividers and come along. And now you can see that my next cut is going to be right here. And I'm going to go just inside that line. And I'll show you why in a second. All right, like I pointed out before, this honeycomb network, I don't really want to change any of that, But just to show you how easily it can be changed, look at that, this big heavy ring, and I can just squeeze it. So I think what I'm gonna do is laser tack this together to hold it in place and then solder it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna squeeze it together, get it lined up, and hit it. But now I really need to hit it on the inside, and I'll show you why here in just a second, but watch this. All right, that's good. All right, so remember when I said I'm gonna cut inside that line, I ran a saw blade just barely through it to highlight it, and the welds that I just did are on this side of it, but see that little gap like right in there? The reason that I cut inside that line is once I push these together, that here's the gap between the rings, that now when I come through here and run a saw blade through it, it will pretty much clean up both ends of this joint to where I've got a good tight fit. And the reason I wanted to laser weld it on the inside real good was because it's all going to stay together right till that very last cut when I get to the bottom here in just a second, like that. To get this in focus, I'm going to bring it together, line it up, tack it. Hit it a few times on the inside. All right, I like. Now let's go solder it. All right, so what I'm gonna do before I solder it on the bottom, I'm gonna come in here and kind of heat this honeycomb up and just see if I can't take just a little bit of tension out of it to kind of take the pressure off of the bottom. All right, one of three things is gonna happen. Either the weld that I just put on it is gonna pop, I'm hoping not, or the solder joint that's beside it is gonna pop, or it's gonna go perfect. I'm voting for number 3. So far, let's draw the solder under. Ooh, we got lucky. All right, so the solder went real well. The sizing went good. Now, if you'll look at it, I am not going to try to round this out because once again, I don't want to affect this honeycomb, but my choice is to finish this out now and set the 2 diamonds that we're missing later, or set the 2 diamonds and then polish it, or just prep this whole back side. I think I'm going to prep this first, set the diamonds next. All right, now that I've got this mostly sanded and cleaned up, now I'm going to give all the other jewelers out here a pro tip. That even though the sandpaper I'm using now looks like the sandpaper I used a second ago, it's not. This is a 600 grit paper. What I was using before was a 320 grit paper. When you've got a real big, wide, white gold ring, white gold doesn't like to polish very well. So what I'm going to do, if you'll look right here, you can see my previous sand scratches or sandpaper scratches. So I'm going to come in here with 600, go in opposite direction. And now if you'll notice, the ring is a lot shinier than it was before. So if you're doing a big, wide, white gold anything, before you polish it with Triple E and Rouge, go through it and take the whole thing up to 600 or 1,000 grit, and it'll make your polish a whole lot easier. Okay, I know it's hard to see, but see this little notch cut right here into this prong? That's where the missing diamond is supposed to sit, and that notch is not deep enough, so we're going to go in there and cut that a little deeper so that stone will sit there correctly. right, so now we got to do something tricky. In theory, the diamond should go in here and sit against these prongs against that other diamond and then rotate down. But the diamond is bigger than this burr, and what it's doing is it's bumping right here, so it won't pop in there. So I have to figure out how to get it in. So what I'm going to do is go on this side of the ring, and I'm going to take my burr and I'm going to cut it deeper. And so in theory, I will take the diamond and push it in like deeper on this side, then it'll pop on this side, then I'll push this prong and this prong forward. Let's see if that works. So I cut this prong and this prong deeper on this end in hopes that that diamond will go far enough in there. Hang on here, this is tricky. All right, see how it's set in there real nice and pretty? Now, I'm gonna take a number 40 graver and I'm gonna come right here, oops, and hopefully the diamond stayed in. I'm gonna take a number 40 graver and I'm gonna come right in here and push this prong forward. Look at that diamond's already tight. I'll do the same thing on this other prong and push it this direction. And sometimes just like that, the prong shears off. That's okay, I can fix it. All right, y'all wanna know where I spend most of my days? Right here with this in my hand or on my hands and knees looking for the diamond I just dropped. But I'm going to give you a pro tip for all the other jewelers out there. As I was sweeping this, I was sweeping my floor and then I saw it. It's right there. Okay, so your natural inclination is to just go ahead. I've almost got the floor swept, let me finish. My pro tip is this: when you find what you are looking for, you stop what you're doing, you pick it up and set it somewhere safe, and then you finish sweeping the floor, because the number of times that I have basically saw something and then decided to finish sweeping, and then it doesn't end up in my dustpan, it just goes poof. So now, rule of thumb, when I find it, I get it, and then finish sweeping. All right, you want to know another pro tip for the professionals out there? I always have what I call my sweep hole. That when I sweep, if you'll kind of look in here, Anna, there's stuff in here. There's a battery. There's probably a little diamond or two. There's stuff in there I need to pick through, and that I don't want it to go in the trash. But I really need to set that diamond, so what do I do with this? I've got a little spot behind my door that nobody ever sees, and I'm just gonna put it in there, and you can see that's my sweep hole. And one day I'll get around to going through all that and spend the time, but right now I gotta finish setting that other diamond. All right, so once again, remember I overcut this so the diamond will come further this way and allow it to drop. So let's see if I got it right. I'm gonna angle it in there. Come on. And it dropped right in there like I wanted. So now, once again, I'm gonna take a 40 graver and I'm gonna come in here and I am gonna push this prong that direction. I'm gonna push this prong this direction, and see it's still a little loose, so I'm just going to do a little tightening on it. So now I'll come in on this side once more. I'll come in on this fourth prong right here. completely tight. All right, so now our next job is, if you'll notice, just because we had to mess with this ring a little bit, see all these diamonds are loose? I kind of figured that would happen. Not the one we set right there though. But now I'm gonna go in here and tighten those. And what I'm probably gonna do is just put downward pressure on this prong and go along and do this to all of these prongs, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right, so remember those, that prong that broke a little bit ago that sheared off? When I looked at it real good, I wanted to go in and kind of correct all four of them a little bit. So here's what's tricky. This right here is very thick and heavy. All right, so it's a big, heavy shank. These prongs are very small. And so I'm trying to make metal do what I want it to do when you've got a completely opposing forces with each other. The first one went perfect though, look at that. What are the chances of magic twice in a row? Come on. Got it? Number 3. Like a boss. Number 4, this was the original one. Let me kind of move it just a little so I can see better. All right, they sat down right where I wanted them. All right, so as you can now see, all of the diamonds are back in the ring. So what I'm going to do, I want you to look at something here. Look at this burr and look at the end of it right here. See those teeth inside there? This is called a cup burr, C-U-P. And what it's designed for is to make prongs rounded. So I've got one that's appropriately sized. You just can't see it. So on the prongs that I had to replace yesterday, I'm just going to come in here, and this just makes them uniform and pretty, and makes them just blend in with the ring. And I had to beef a couple up over on this side to make it work correctly. All right, now what we're going to do is get it ready for final polish. All right, so because this is a very wide, heavy white gold band, I want to take this finish up even further before I take it to the polisher. And if you'll look right here on the back of this sandpaper, this is 1000 grit. And it won't take very long with this 1000 grit because I'm already at 600. But I want you to notice something. See how the ring is starting to get shiny? So the more I polish it this way, the less I have to polish it back in the back. And with white gold doesn't like to polish. The nickel is just so hard that it won't move correctly and burnish. So now that's 1000, and I'm going to go one step further, and we have 1500. So now I'm just going to come in here and hit this with 1500. Like that. And so now wait till we go back and polish and see how easy it is. So because I took this to 1500, watch how little I have to polish with Tripoli. That's it. And so now I'll just lightly hit it. I'll hit it real lightly with rouge just to put a final polish on everything. and I'm barely touching the wheel. And look at that. All right, now what we're gonna do is this is just the finishing touch on this ring. This is a process called rhodium plating, and what it does is it just makes white gold a little bit brighter and a little bit whiter, and it just gives it a good look.